Hey, and good morning. Thanks for tuning in to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Colberg. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We've got Amy Thompson with the Thompson team at Costello Real Estate Investment. She's got an interesting story. Can't wait to get into that. Obviously, we continue to be in a hot market. We talk about it every Saturday with the combination of interest rates and lack of inventory. Again, going to highlight some of the changes in that today. But again, can't stress it enough. If you haven't looked into checking some numbers for a refinance, checking some numbers for your homeowner's insurance, finding ways to save money during this COVID crisis, whether you're out of work or maybe seeing a reduction in income, or if you're doing quite well and just want to save some money, be sure to reach out to us, 704-999-6646. Rates right now, can change based on some different variables, but, we're looking at almost sub 3% range, below 3% interest rates right now. So definitely give us a call. Let's put some numbers together for you, see if we can save you some money. Let's get into the market. Continues to be hot. We talked last week about, maybe getting off the fence of wanting to sell your home. If you were thinking that now is not a great time to sell your home, it definitely is. So, if you're on the fence of selling your home, definitely call your local expert real estate agent and start putting some numbers together, and your house more than likely is going to fly off the market. And so we're going to get into that right now. Amy Thompson. Amy, good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get into kind of your background a little bit with real estate, and obviously it's the Thompson team.
Correct.
So we've just got you here in studio with us, but who makes up the Thompson team? Give us that background.
It's currently me and my mother, Beverly. The two of us, we came into real estate together. We do everything together. As I was telling you earlier, we even bought a house together where it has two separate masters, so that way when she travels or I travel, we have our own lives. We also have dogs. So dogs are always taken care of. Someone's always there with them. So we just came into real estate because it's something that we enjoy. We liked buying our house. We like the whole process of it. And we like seeing other people get their dreams coming true. Because, homeownership's a big thing nowadays.
Sure.
You should definitely invest instead of rent. Sorry, but you should.
100%. We certainly believe in home ownership, and all the stats prove that being a homeowner is so much better financially. And there are even some statistics out there that kind of measure the emotional or mental health of people, that actually be owning a home actually increases some of those statistics as well. So you and your mom share a house, and you're sharing everything. So you can kind of like meet in the middle of the house and discuss clients and make sure that you guys are providing great service.
Absolutely. So we try to help each other with our clients. If I'm not available because I'm with someone else or something's going on, she can go step in, and then vice versa. If she's not available, like I said, we both love traveling. That's the biggest thing, especially my brother. He had a baby just over a year ago, last June. And so she goes down to Florida. She spends a week down there. I can help take over her clients during that time, and vice versa. So
Right.
Baby never really gets us together, but that's okay.
Right. So how did you and your mom kind of like team up and get into real estate kind of as a team, getting in it together?
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of been that process like?
So we started school together. We did our pre and our post licensing courses together down in Columbia, actually. So we drove a little bit of a ways, but it was kind of worth it. We definitely networked and made some real estate friends down that way. We decided to go into real estate mainly because, like I said, we liked the whole process of it. We enjoyed buying the house together. Every time as a kid when she was buying a house, I would go with her, and I just loved tearing apart and seeing like, oh, this room could do this and that room could do this. And of course, I had to pick out my room. Me and my
Sure.
brother would fight over that. And a lot of my clients, they tend to see that happen with their kids, where they're like, I want this room. And it's always a little bit of a bicker with their kids, but that's okay.
Right.
But no, we went into, because like I said, we love doing it. And at the end of the day, I'm like, this is something that now, especially when the baby became announced, like, oh, this is coming, then what we looked at, we were like, okay, this gives us a flexibility where we can go to Florida. One of us can stay behind, still make an income, and still have our livelihood moving forward, but do more of what we want to do at the same time and still help people.
Yeah. So obviously, it's a fantastic time to get into real estate. It's a fantastic time to be buying or selling or refinancing. and certainly a great time to kind of look for employment in these industries.
Absolutely.
What has that kind of process been like? So it's been about a year now where you and your mom, got into real estate together. What's been that process like over the past year? And because
Yeah.
we obviously we love the real estate industry, we love mortgage industry, of course. We love working with real estate agents, and I do get questions from time to time from people who's maybe looking to maybe get into real estate. You and your mom both have other careers as well, something that
Correct.
you kind of been working on a transition
Absolutely.
into full-time real estate. What's been that process like for those people who may be, listening and maybe thinking about wanting to maybe get into real estate?
I will fair warn you. One, it costs a pretty penny. Do your math before you
Yeah.
decide to jump into it, because it's not like, oh, I go take the course and now I'm licensed. There's other fees associated with it afterwards. You also have to take your post licensing, so you have that in addition. It's not something straight out the gate. It is something you have to work for. You have to be on call 24/7, and you have to be willing to put forth the effort. So you want to have a date night with your spouse or your significant other, it's sometimes that phone's going to go off, and they need to understand this is your livelihood. This is how you're going to make it happen. Sometimes you're up till 1 o'clock at night and you're negotiating with another agent, and that's just how it goes. It's not about what you know. I mean, of course, you need to know things in and out, because
Right.
you're asking someone to trust you with $100,000 purchase and up. Um, that's their life. This is their biggest investment. You need to make sure that you know what you're doing. But it's also about who you know. Networking is the biggest thing. So you need to make sure you have your connections there, and that, I mean, one of the first people who I made connection with is one of your lenders, which was Christy, and she's helped me greatly. Just
Yeah.
getting out there, networking and marketing and understanding what I'm doing. And even her husband, Brad, up in Charlotte, he's a realtor, and he helped me a lot. He went line by line with me through contracts and making sure I'm doing it right. So you want to make sure you have someone in your corner who's going to help you, who has that experience, and you also want to make sure that you know the right people who are going to help you get to where you need to be. And it's just constant, all day, every day. And there's nothing wrong with that,
Right.
because you can have fun with it. I love it. I love networking. I love socializing, so it works for me. But it's constant. So if you're an introvert, may not be the best thing.
Right.
You've
It-
got to get out of your shell.
a lot of similarities, but with the same about being a buyer. You've got to be surrounded by a team of professionals, and just like getting into real estate, it's not something that you can just kind of go it alone. You really do need a team around you, a great company.
Right.
Costello Real Estate Investments is a fantastic company. Having a guy like Brad, training, and then teaming up with the right lenders, like you said, is certainly important. Attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, lenders. It really
Absolutely.
does take a team, especially now. I mean, guidelines are continually changing on the mortgage side. Insurance is actually changing a good bit. Some of the attorneys' guidelines are changing, due to COVID, and then everything's changing.
Yeah.
And so it really does take a team, but a lot of similarities from being a buyer and getting in real estate. So obviously, a lot of hard work. How has
Absolutely.
kind of been the process managing full-time career, and then grinding this new career in real estate?
I'm very blessed to have a flexible schedule at work. I will say
Yeah.
that they completely understand, and they're very supportive. They're just like, as long as it does not affect your productivity with us, you're fine. When you're with us, you're with us. Perfect. And they say, if you get a phone call, just clock out. Cool. That's awesome. That not every company's
it's
going to do
great.
that. So if you don't have that, again, it may not be the best thing. It might be something you might want to look at doing, a career change, in order to have, I don't say have real estate on the side, because I see it as a dual career, because I put just as much time and effort, maybe more effort, into real estate, just because I know it's me. I have to build it on my own. There's no one else doing it for me. So I know I have to do it. But you have to be able to put forth that time and that effort towards it. Flexible scheduling is the biggest thing. That one I can't stress enough. And then, of course, the financial commitment. Make sure that you've got those extra funds to put forth towards it, because it's not just, like I said, a one and done. It's, you have your MLS fees, you have your National Association Realtor fees, you have Supra, there's showing time. They're going to keep coming like
Right.
clockwork, just like an electric bill, like clockwork.
Yeah. You're listening to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Culver. Give us a call anytime during or after the show, 704 999 6646. We're here with Amy Thompson, the Thompson team, Costello Real Estate Investment. So, Amy, getting into real estate, obviously a lot of companies out there, Costello Real Estate Investments being one of them. The new model seems to be kind of where you come on board to a real estate company, maybe an agent brings you in, they're getting maybe some compensation for attracting new realtors.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic. I think that's the absolute best way to do it. It really incentivizes people to help and train and build each other up, as opposed to maybe trying to be uber competitive and maybe try to knock some other people down, right? So I'm sure a lot of people out there in this whole crisis, maybe they've had a furlough or a loss of income. They see the real estate markets continue to be hot. What would your advice to them? And obviously you're still working a dual career. What would your advice to them be to maybe looking into real estate as a career?
Like I said, the first thing is make sure you have the financial aspect there, because I would hate for you to go invest. There's several thousands. I'd hate for you to start, invest, and then not be able to continue to maintain. Most realtors I know, it takes them a few months before they're able to go ahead and get that first closing. Sometimes you know someone right out the gate who's in your immediate either family or a close friend or even just an associate that says, hey, I want you to represent me. Sure, great. You can do that. It's not a problem. And to me, that's a blessing that you have someone instantly. But sometimes you don't have that.
Right.
So you need to be prepared for that. It's a big family decision. If you have kids, if you have a spouse, you really should make sure they're on board too. They understand this commitment that you're about to take on. And if you're flying solo, you're good. You only check with yourself. You're fine. But you got to make sure you're willing to put forth that time and that effort to it to make it keep going, because that's just the only way to do it.
For sure. So as you've got into real estate, what's kind of been your biggest, or what were the main questions you had when getting into real estate as a real estate agent? What were like kind of 3 or 4 or 5 like biggest questions that you were like, hey, I need to figure this out, or what's this about? Or
the biggest thing, like I said, is financial aspect. Make sure, because you need to make sure that you are comfortable with putting forth this and not getting anything back for a month or 2 months or maybe even a year. Most realtors, I hate saying this, but the turnover rate within the first 2 years is huge.
Yeah.
And that's because a lot of people go into it, they think that it's an instant income, it's an instant life-changing, game-changing situation, and it's not, unfortunately. And they're not willing to put forth that work and effort. And maybe not willing shouldn't be how I go with it. It's more they can't, because they have other commitments, other priorities that are there. And
I'll go with willing.
Willing? Well, and I've known some that, they've got their family, especially with coronavirus, where now they're doing virtual schooling and they can't be on call 24/7.
This is true. COVID definitely throws a wrinkle in everything that we're doing for sure right now.
Everyone's life, unfortunately, but that's okay. I mean,
it's like with anything, but real estate does provide, just a fantastic opportunity to fit in time.
Yes.
An hour here, an hour there.
Yes.
I do think it's a full-time job, but there's a way to, if you're organized and detailed, it's flexible, right? And it's certainly, again, with the way that a lot of companies do it now, it's certainly a great time to kind of learn, as you go, which is what you're doing. So, well, like after you got in, let's say you're 3 months in, what were kind of the biggest questions you had at that point as you're kind of navigating through your real estate career?
Yeah, absolutely. So we originally started with a different firm, and then we met Brad and kind of just talked to him about Costello, and I was like, you know what? I feel like that's a great opportunity. We should talk to the owner, John, and he met with us. He made it his schedule work with our schedule, and we met and we're like, you know what, this is like a perfect fit. So a few things that we looked at were, how are we going to branch out, market a little bit stronger? We've done tons of open houses. Unfortunately, those have obviously been scaled back. One, there's no inventory to do an open house at, and two, we just, with COVID, we want to make sure sellers are comfortable, potential buyers are comfortable. You've got strangers walking in your house.
Right.
So there's a lot of safety precautions we want to make sure that are being taken. I mean, we can wipe down as many doorknobs as possible, but you never know. Something can happen. But our biggest thing was, for me, I went straight and got my North Carolina license. Whether or not Beverly was going to get hers was a question. She hasn't done it yet, and she doesn't need to, because primarily we work a lot in York County and over in Lancaster. Those are our two primary areas. And then I've done a few up in Charlotte, but I can do those. Unfortunately, we can't tag team, but I have a great team of realtors at my firm who can help me if I need a last minute, can't make it up there. A lot of it was continuing training from our firm. That was a big aspect for us, who we've got to support us. So when we decided to make that switch, because we made it about that 3-month time, so it's perfect time that you asked that for, it was who's going to continue to be there, who's going to mentor us, who's going to train us, who's going to make sure that, we continuously have that support, and not just that, but that push to keep going. Because sometimes when you don't have a client, especially after a week, believe it or not, that's all it takes. You're like,
right,
now what? Like, am I in the right industry? What am I doing? It
sure
is great. I just made a closing, but now what? Because you don't see anything, but that pipeline will fill back up. You will get someone in there. It's going to happen. It just takes time and effort.
What's been the value of kind of that training, kind of that, maybe Brad, like kind of holding hands,
Yeah.
and what's been the value of that training as you've been in your first year?
Yeah, like I said, you are working with someone's biggest financial investment, and it may be their first, it could be their last, it could be their only they'll ever make, and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. So first time I wrote a contract, Brad was with me, went line by line, making sure I completed everything. I did it correctly. I got my client what they needed. When we went into negotiation, still made sure everything that I asked for was right, because that contract is very wordy. And yes, there's a lot of just fill in the blanks. But if you put in the wrong thing, let's say the address is 123 Main Street, and you put 132, you just bought a whole different property that's not even for sale.
Right.
It completely changes, and so you want to make sure everything's right. So it was great that he went through it and made sure I did it right, and just had that there. The continuing training, because things change constantly. Every year, you got your contracts have revisions from the commission, and you got to make sure that it's there, that you know what you're doing, especially with having coronavirus, having my broker in charge. He answers the phone 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. Bless his heart. He probably is like, girl, lose my number. Just don't. But he responds, and he's like, here you go. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to go with this. Just because, especially with everything, having the safety and sanitary precautions going on with coronavirus, everything changes constantly. And how things are operating in Mecklenburg versus how they're operating in York County, totally different. I'm sure everyone sees our governor versus their governor. Totally different things are happening there.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly interesting. People seem to be on one extreme side of the fence or the other, and as salespeople, and I've talked about it on the show before, we're trying to navigate the middle, right?
Right.
Because
make everyone happy.
That's how we do. We do make everyone happy. So you're listening to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. If you're not happy, give us a call, 704-999-6646. I'm your host, Brandon Kohlberg. We've got Amy Thompson with the Thompson team at Costello Real Estate and Investments here in studio with us. So you bought a house. You and your mom buy a house. You and your mom are the Thompson team. Mm-hmm. What was that process like as a buyer? Of course, you're buying this before you get into real estate. Kind of maybe begins the itch, so to speak, to get into real estate. Maybe. What were kind of the biggest questions that you had as a buyer before being in the industry as you were going through that process? What was that like for you?
So we bought a brand new build house. So a lot of it was already kind of done for us. It was kind of a spec home. We got to make some changes to it. Yeah. When we walked in the model, I just looked around and I said, this is it. This is what we're looking for, because we needed our separate living spaces. She needed her space that she could go to. I needed my space. Our bedrooms did not need to be next to each other. We didn't need any of that. So we just made sure it was a little bit separate. So we love this house. Biggest thing was doing like your earnest money. I knew nothing about this. I was like, how much do you want? And granted, with a new build, they already have their set amount. But you go talk to a sales rep at a new home builder, they're like, oh, you need to put down X amount. And you're like, well, I'm just throwing a number, 5,000 out there. oh, I only had like 3,000. They said, okay, well, let's work out a pay schedule with you. And so they worked it out, and it was paid within a month that I made up the amount that they needed. So that's always a plus. And I may not have known that if I didn't have my realtor there.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, perfect. Because when you go to a new home builder, first off, as a buyer, it costs you absolutely nothing to use a realtor. Nothing at all. If you go there, you're not getting any discount because you don't have a realtor on your side. You're going in, and that person you're working with is working for the builder, not for you. Their best interest is not yours. Your realtor has your interest at heart, not theirs.
Right.
So always have someone represent you, because especially if you're first time, you may not know what you're doing. I talked to several lenders when I was going through, and I mean, I literally, even they have their preferred. I think I got 5 different rate quotes. They were probably like, you have enough. You don't need any more. But I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable, and it wasn't just, and they tell you this is what your mortgage is going to be. Okay, great. But I need to know about having my insurance in there. What about my taxes? Let's figure out numbers here. And so, bless their heart, I had a million questions, and they took their time and they explained everything because I didn't understand.
Right.
And so it is important that you have a lender who's going to be constantly there for you when you need them, that they'll answer your questions. And that's why, like I said, I network with the best lenders. If you burn my client because you're not answering them, you burn our relationship. Like, don't put a hole there.
Yeah.
Like, help them out, because that's your whole scope of practice. It's outside of my, granted, I know a lot about the lender side of it, but I don't know everything. And you guys are constantly changing, especially right now. I need your support there. Let me help them with their house. You help with their finance. We got this. Finding areas, because especially in Rock Hill, knowing school zones, totally different.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that I would be in Northwestern because they're literally in my backyard, but I'm with South Point. I'm like, I'm way down the road, but that's okay. I mean, it just happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. So obviously, school choice or school zone is a big, thought process for people buying a home, especially with young kids. And so that obviously is.
Eventually, they'll go back. Eventually.
Right. Knock on wood. We're certainly pulling for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big swaying decision for families for sure.
Absolutely.
To have someone who's local to the area, understands the zones, what school may be better, or what or just the differences between.
Well, I can't
schools.
comment on a school. I can help guide you to where their grades are. I can't comment on a school, but like I have a client right now who said she will list her house when she finds a house. I said, you need to be prepared. Talk to a lender, get your pre-approved, get a pre-qual, get me something, because I can't make an offer for you without having that. I said, once we list your house, this is what the market's doing. This is how quickly it will change. But she wants a very specific school, and she wants a very specific house. So it's finding the two together. And so it's a constant looking at the MLS, seeing what's coming up, checking with other agents in my firm. Hey, do you have anything that is coming up? Let me know. This is what they want. But yeah, sometimes it's just a process. And I know certain websites don't say, hey, filter by this school. So they're looking at everything. They're like, where's this going?
Yeah, for sure. You're listening to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Colbert. Give us a call anytime during or after the show, 704-999-6646. So in transitioning, those were kind of your biggest questions at buying a home. Then you get into real estate. You start working with buyers. Of course, you're working with buyers and sellers. But when you've been working with the buyers, what have you kind of felt that their biggest questions are, and how kind of your recent experience been able to kind of translate to help them answer those?
Like I have a buyer right now who, she told me she wanted one thing, and I found her the perfect house, but not in the area. And she's like, actually, I really like this. She's like, my boys can go out in the backyard and they can play out there for hours. And the boys went out there yesterday and they're like, oh my God, there's so much. There's a creek, there's woods. They're just so excited about it. So figuring out what they like and then surprising them that, hey, by the way, this house, it's not exactly where you want it. It's in an exact neighborhood. It's like right next door. What do you think? And then all of a sudden, I mean, I had a buyer 2-3 months ago, and he was dead set on a house. He said, this is going to be my house. And then as soon as he went under contract, he was on his house that he was selling. He was dead set on this other house. And I was like, I don't think you're going to like this house. Based off of everything you told me, I don't think you're going to like this. I said, but this one just came on the market literally 30 minutes after we went under contract on the sale of his house. And he's like, I don't think I'm going to like it. I'm like, we'll see about that. Yeah. Within 30 seconds of walking the door, he said, I'm buying this house. I was like, should have listened to me in the first place.
Very
we
cool.
didn't have to waste our time at the other one.
Right.
I was like, here you go. This is the house that you want because it's everything that you wanted that's on your checklist. It's everything. So why would you not want it? So as soon as he walked in, he's like, you were right. I'm like, just listen, because I'm listening to you the whole time.
So yeah, so how do you go through that process or that checklist with the buyer to kind of really start beginning to hone in what they're looking for? A lot of times they don't know what they're looking for. Maybe they're adding pieces of the puzzle, but you're kind of putting the puzzle together, right? As the expert.
Absolutely. The more houses you see with them, and you, of course, want to try to limit the houses because it becomes so overwhelming at some point where they're like, this is just too much that they're mixing like kitchens in different houses and bathrooms and different fixtures. And I'm like, hang on.
Pictures do well these days.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. And giving them like, of course, if I can get them a floor plan, here you go. Because that's how I based the house that he ended up purchasing was strictly off the floor plan. There were no interior photos at this point when I first saw it. I'm like, this floor plan is perfect for you. As long as it looks good inside, I know it's perfect. So when he went in, like I said, it was based off floor plan that I picked the house, and it worked. First, I try to get the general, what do you need in a house? What kind of 1 bathroom, 2 bathroom? Are you looking for a single family home? Are you open to a townhome? What type of home? Of course, I need to ask you, are you even interested in doing a manufactured or a modular? I need to know those because some want a stick built. They aren't even going to consider doing a manufactured. Okay, cool. Need to know that. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Are you willing to do renovations, or do I need to find you something turnkey, ready to walk in and live? And sometimes they're like, no, we want to do some upgrades. Cool. Good to know. We want to make it our own. Are you okay with painting a room? Are you like, no, I don't even want to paint? Okay, need to know that. Need to know how perfect this house needs to be for you. Sometimes not perfect at all. Perfect, good to know. Yeah. And sometimes, we find a house that needs minor things, and the person who wants the perfect house says, it's perfect. Excellent. Makes it even easier. And then just going through the process when I show them homes, even just sending them online, and they can say, no, I don't like that kitchen. Okay, cool. Now I know if I find a kitchen like this is not going to work for you. This is what you're looking for. So I pay attention to little things, and I let people talk when I'm showing them the house. If they're like, I really like these countertops. Okay, they're granite. They like granite countertops. Let me find granite countertops. And they don't realize that these are things that I need to pick up on so I can find you your perfect house, because I don't want you to settle. That does us no good, because you're going to call me in a year and say, I hate this house. I sold you that house. You're not happy with it. Not okay. Right. So we just try to make it work.
So when you're working with them, you kind of get through the process of finding the house that they want. Once they're, the contract, what has your kind of experience been with working with those buyers once they're under contract, and kind of their experience? What questions are they having? Are you working with them like to help navigate financing options or find the right lender? What does that process look like?
Absolutely. I always give at least 3. Any recommendations I give at least 3. I'm not allowed to have a favorite, so I can't give a favorite. But I will explain like, so this is what happened with this lender. This is what happened with that lender. Because I pick these lenders based off of my client's experience. I want to recommend. And then the next step is, of course, I help them pick out, before they're even under contract, I help them pick out a lender. And I make sure that they have a good relationship with that lender, that they're like, hey, this is someone I know I can trust, that they're giving me honest answers, they're explaining in details what I don't understand, and then moving forward from there. As long as they can build that rapport and that relationship, perfect, because I've already got those relationships with them, that I'm okay with whichever one of mine you want to choose. If you want to choose someone that's not even on my list, cool. I'll make a relationship. I will make it work.
Not cool. What's up?
I know. But, I mean, I will make it work if you're dead set on your lender. Okay, perfect. But, of course, I want you to explore your options. I always recommend checking out a few. It's not going to necessarily hurt your credit, and you can comment on that because that's
Yeah,
your scope of practice.
for sure.
You can look at several at the same exact time, have them all look at your credit, but because you've already run it once, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you have like 2 weeks at least that you can have other ones run, and because it's in the same family of
Industry, correct. That's certainly one of the questions I get, or one of the, I guess, holdbacks I get from time to time from clients is, well, I don't want my credit pulled. Well, why not? Well, it's going to go down. Well, no, it won't. But yeah, I mean, so you can shop for mortgages for a 14-day period. So there are some different scoring models out there. Some is actually a 30-day window. Some is a 21-day window. I think it's safe to say in the mortgage industry, you're looking at most likely a 14-day window to have your credit pulled by a number of different companies. But two, also, credit is so specific to the individual. So, Amy, you could do something. You could go apply for a credit card today, and maybe your credit score doesn't move at all. And maybe the same day I apply for a credit card, my credit score may drop 3 points.
Right.
Because it's specific to the individual and what's on it. So one size does not fit all when it comes to credit. And that's what I explain to clients all the time. And someone who's got a 780 credit score doesn't need to worry about a few points. In the mortgage world, anything above a 740, you're the top tier for credit. You're going to get the absolute best deal. Now, if you've got maybe a 650 credit score and you're worried about credit pulls, we maybe need to talk about that.
Absolutely.
But where credit inquiries, this is kind of the gist of the matter, where credit inquiries begin to hurt you. The credit scoring formula is monitoring if you are trying to maybe overextend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Legally, you can't really overextend yourself on a mortgage, and that's why mortgage credit inquiries really don't negatively affect you. Now, if you go apply for 5 credit cards at the same time, your score is going to be negatively impacted because that's telling the scoring formula, or the scoring formula is telling the creditors that you're probably overextending yourself or trying to overextend yourself. Maybe you've kind of hit your max on some other cards or income-wise, and you're out applying for a bunch of new credit cards at the same time. You're probably looking to overextend yourself. So you're going to see some negative marks on if you're repeatedly trying to get new credit cards. But with a mortgage, it's certainly different. But again, it's very, very specific to the individual, and that's certainly what, how we kind of navigate that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we pick it out, I'm like, find out what's the best rate for you. Obviously, who you get along with, because this is someone I still talk to my mortgage lender at least once a year. I'm like, so how you doing?
Right.
Let's have a conversation. Like, how's my escrow looking? I always talk to her just to make sure it just looks good. So someone who I'm going to have a relationship with for a good 30 years. And that's just how it's going to be, and that's okay. She doesn't mind. She's not annoyed by me just yet, as far as I know.
I hope not, because
I'm like, but I mean, she would have been annoyed with me during the home buying process because I had a lot of questions, especially as a first-time home buyer. And it's okay to have questions because you're going to. And, so of course, before we go under contract, I try to match them with the lender. If they're not happy with their lender, and it wouldn't be the first time I've had to have a client switch out their lender. And I mean, Christy overtook one at the very beginning. It wasn't even my direct client. It was someone who had to refer out because it was in northern North Carolina. I said, I don't know that as well. Right. I don't want to sell you a home in an area I don't know. You may not be happy with me. So I referred her out, and she was going through someone else, and she did not like the whole lending process. And I called Christy. I said, well, you just have a conversation. Will you just look over the paperwork? Christy took time, and all of a sudden she switched lenders. I said, that's all it took. So you can switch. It's not set in stone. You don't have to be there. Once they're under contract, it's getting your inspection lined up. Make sure, go through what's important. I always tell everyone, if it is something that you can spend $5, $10, up to $100 even at Walmart or over at Home Depot or Lowe's, wherever, and buy the parts that you need and just spend a weekend and fix it, is it worth going to battle with the seller? Is it worth it to you? Where they're like, you know what, we're going to pull the whole contract. This is ridiculous. Is it really worth it? I mean, when we sold my mom's home, I about died of laughter when I saw the inspection report come in and say they wanted a licensed contractor to replace a faceplate on an electrical outlet. I'm like, I got a screwdriver and a couple bucks. I'll do that myself. And I'm not licensed
Right.
at all. But I will go do that myself. I'm not paying someone like $75 to do this, to do less than $5 fix. And they're like, okay, that's fine. They worked with us on that, but I'm like, if you guys are like holding to your guns, not happening. It's not getting replaced.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And there's where a true expert real estate agent is going to kind of like guide. Of course, you're guiding the clients for home inspections, very legal stuff. And so
Absolutely.
obviously you don't really need a licensed contractor to screw on a faceplate.
No.
And so
I was like,
having
what?
that professional agent kind of like walk the buyers through that process. This is certainly something that, even if you've bought a home or bought several homes, it's not something that you're doing every day.
Mm-mm.
We do this every day.
Absolutely.
And so kind of we know what to look out for, how to handle things when they come due. Certainly when you're a first-time home buyer, it's kind of like deer in the headlights. They don't know
Right.
what's going on. So that's really where, we do our best work. Obviously, you do work with a lot of first-time home buyers. What is their kind of experience like? When they're looking for a house and looking to maybe just begin getting pre-qualified, what are kind of their questions that you're asking you? Obviously, you're starting to build out the team for, to help them with home insurance and
Absolutely.
lenders. But what is that kind of process for you? Like, what are the questions that you're getting from these first-time home buyers on the front end?
A lot of it is, what can I expect when they go into getting a lender? They ask me for interest rates. I'm like, I have no idea. They change every day.
Okay.
And not only that, it's not a one size fits all. What's your credit? What's your income? It's all different as to everything there. A lot of them will ask, why North Carolina versus South Carolina? There's a lot of tax incentives to go to South Carolina. So a lot of people will go down that way and say, hey, let me go ahead and save on property taxes. Cool. If that works for you, you're okay with the commute, or you don't have to commute. Majority of people are not commuting right now. So they enjoy that a lot. It's mainly the mortgage side, to be honest, and
Sure.
that's when I refer out, because it's not my scope of practice. It's not my primary thing. It's not fair to them to try to answer a question and say, I think this is it. I'd rather know this is it. So if they want me to get the answer, I'll get the answer. If not, I will say, all right, let's go ahead and bring in the lender and get that answer. But I'm not going to just guess.
Yeah, sure. So you kind of mentioned, earlier that some of these first-time home buyers are kind of asking questions about maybe down payment assistance or first-time home buyer programs. A lot of marketing stuff out there geared towards first-time home buyers, and I'll get the question, almost daily, if not certainly weekly. Hey, well, what first-time home buyer programs do you have?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be always kind of, there's so many marketing things out there, and that, quite frankly, if you're a first-time home buyer, you probably don't know a lot.
Right.
And so marketing, believe it or not, works.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of bank programs out there that'll advertise, no mortgage insurance or little or no money down. But then you see the terms and they're like, man, this is almost robbery.
Right.
So, like, how do you kind of help your clients navigate some of the things out there? I mean, we definitely talk about some programs that are out there that are good, some that are bad. What does that kind of look like? I mean, are you kind of helping them kind of navigate through any of these options?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll go through and I'll break down what's important to them, what is financially sound to them. So let's say you're approved for $300,000. This is going to be your mortgage payment. When you guys calculate mortgage, and correct me if I'm wrong, you look at their gross income, not their net income.
Correct.
So you need to keep in mind, let's say you're bringing home $5,000 a month, pre-taxes, that's what they're going ahead and looking at. But after taxes, let's say $3,000, and I'm just throwing numbers, I have no
Right.
idea. Are you prepared to make a $1,500 payment out of that $3,000? You just cut half of your actual income that you are bringing in. Then you have to worry about your electric. You need to worry about everything else. So I know lenders help guide as much as possible, but I want to make sure they are understanding what they're actually paying at the end of the day. Maybe we don't go for 300. We do 275. You know,
Right.
something that helps guide you a little bit more, so that way you have your financial income that's going to cover that. Still live the life you love. I'll go through PMI. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that's your insurance on your mortgage. So it's a big thing about having the 20%. Got to have that there. just to avoid it. And you can always look at refinancing as well once you've got that taken care of, because appraisals change, especially right now. I looked at my house when we bought it. It's gone up $65,000 in value since. If I was to turn around and sell it today, I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, if you've bought new construction, certainly in anywhere but almost in York County in the last couple of years, you've done very well. And certainly, with rates dropping, it's just again, look into refinancing for sure, because the values, the rates makes it a great time to kind of look at definitely saving some money, eliminating the mortgage insurance, what you
Absolutely.
just talked about. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different programs out there. Of course, there's conventional. Conventional can be as little as 3% down for first-time home buyers. The mortgage insurance is reduced, based on income. FHA, of course, 3.5% down. A lot of first-time home buyers take advantage of that. Although it's not a first-time home buyer program, but of course you've got USDA, VA. All these programs are really not necessarily specifically for first-time home buyers, but a lot of low down payment options typically are what first-time home buyers are looking at. So it definitely fills a niche there. And of course, there's some down payment assistance programs out there as well. Through the state of South Carolina, North Carolina, City of Rock Hill has one that's pretty good. And there's a few other out there, and it's really, of course, we get the questions all the time, and it's really kind of navigating. Well, which programs are you referring to? And, which programs are you hearing about? And,
Right.
maybe they've talked to some other lender and the other lender's kind of hyped up something, but it really comes down, one of the things that we want to do, kind of our top priority, is making sure the client's well served financially. We really don't just want to hand them a mortgage because we want to look at their entire financial picture. Just like, you said,
Right.
you go into depth with them as far as their take home pay and what their mortgage payment was. And maybe they're not budgeting, probably not, because not many people do budget these days, unfortunately. But they may be just unaware of what their money is actually going to. Do they have enough for this particular plan? And a lot of these first-time home buyer programs, the down payment assistance programs, are so much more expensive, actually, believe it or not, than finding maybe a slightly different way to come up with a small down payment. You can literally save hundreds of dollars a month by
Right.
not doing a down payment assistance program. Now, there's some good ones out there, but again, it goes to kind of the specifics and getting in the details.
Still cost you money.
Yeah,
And I'm all about saving money.
Right,
All
yeah.
about it.
We'll give you $3,000 in down payment assistance, but it's going to cost you an extra $100 for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
That's not a good deal.
No.
So we go into great detail about these different particular programs. We're well versed in all these different programs that are out there, and we want to help weigh the pros and cons
Right.
with the client and let them make the decision that's best for them. We don't, of course, we want to make any decision for them, but we do want to provide all the information that's out there so they can make a well-informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with that.
You're listening to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Colberg. Give us a call anytime during or after the show, 704-999-6646. We're here in studio with Amy Thompson, the Thompson team at Costello Real Estate and Investment. So obviously, talking a little bit about the lending side, that, kind of helping your first-time home buyers, that. What's kind of been that process for, as you've navigated through your first year of real estate, kind of what have been the big surprises with working with buyers and sellers, like, hey, that maybe caught you off guard or caught your buyers off guard during the process, just so we can kind of maybe get some more information out there?
The biggest thing, and it's becoming even bigger as time is going on, is we are going to a lot of multiple offers.
For sure.
The market is ridiculous. To say it's crazy.
In a good way.
Yeah, it's like it is a seller's market like I've never seen before. I mean, we saw it back in 2006 when it was crazy hot. It's been a seller's market for probably the last 5 years. When I bought my house, it was still a seller's market, but it is crazy. I had a client, I mean, it broke my heart. She emailed me, I want to say it was on Sunday, saying that her and her husband were getting so discouraged because we went into 2 multiple offers. One, they made a decision on, I believe it was Saturday. The other one was Friday. By Sunday night, she's emailed me saying that they are just getting discouraged through it because they lost out on both of them. And then by the time we went for our third one, I'm like, we're going to multiple offers. You ready for this? And I'm like, are you prepared to lose it? Like, I need to bring your highest and best because right now, if we don't, you may lose it. And I want to make sure that you are comfortable with this right now. And of course, they won the third one, so I was really excited. It's like third time's a
Hey.
charm. um, but that is probably the biggest surprise as to how much it's changed to a seller's market. Like, it's been a seller's market, but it is stronger than ever. I have someone who, like I said, I have one that she will not list her house because she knows it's going to sell. She knows it will sell until she finds the house she wants. And I've got someone else who I said, they're looking at moving to Florida. And I said, be prepared to move out in 30 days because that's what's about to happen. We might be able to get you longer in negotiations, but they might have sold their house. They need to move. So it's like, be prepared to go. Like, once it's on the market, pack it all up. Pack up now. So it's crazy ridiculous. And sellers are, I mean, you're getting bidding wars, so they're getting more than what they initially even thought. And it's crazy.
So definitely a very, very strong seller's market. So how do you kind of prepare the buyers, especially the first-time home buyers? Again, you know, they're the first time, you know, through the rodeo, and specifically with maybe the difference between just being pre-qualified and being pre-approved. We're obviously trying to make their offer stand out, or you're trying to make their offer stand out. It's not just about price or earnest money or due diligence, or it's about having a really solid pre-approval letter, maybe just not pre-qualification. What does that kind of process look like as far as, how do you negotiate all those things or counsel your first-time home buyers through that as far as all the pieces to make their offer the strongest?
Of course, I'll explain to them, get a pre-approval. That is much further along. They've done a little bit more work to make sure that you are ready because pre-quals, they can just fall through and then all of a sudden nothing. And other realtor, the listing agent knows that. Any realtor will know that. So you want to make sure that you're going ahead and getting that ready to go, that they are already pre-approved. They're not just pre-qualified. They got a pre-approval letter sitting here. We're ready to go. I'll explain to them. People want to try to negotiate closing costs. Are you ready and willing to lose this house over $1,000? Are you willing to lose out? Because there's someone that may come in and say, we want nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's actually what we lost the first one to. They said, we don't even care what the appraisal comes back for. I'm like, what?
Right.
What? Okay, cool. And I mean, that's great. But you're already going to, most of the time, especially first-time home buyer, you don't have, let's say that you're buying a $300,000 house, you're pre-approved for it, but your appraisal comes back at $280,000. Do you have that $20,000 to make up that difference? Because you're going to need it, or you're going to lose the house if that seller is not willing to come down because they had someone else at $300,000 who's ready to go anyways. So you need to make sure that you're coming in at something that's realistic. Look at something that's under, make sure you have that down payment ready to go. Like you said, you could do a down payment assistance, but are you ready to go ahead and pay 3 times the amount of what you're getting assisted for? Because that's not assistance to me. You're paying extra money for no reason.
Yeah, again, just having that conversation up front and kind of looking at all the options, typically we can come up with something a lot better for the client.
Right.
Won't go into detail right now, but because every situation is different, but there's a lot of times where we as the expert, and let's just be honest, not everybody who does what we do is an expert.
Right.
And so you maybe just be talking to the wrong person. But when we get a call, we're going through those options and looking at their current situation, what they can maybe do now to set themselves up for to writing an offer, today or next week or maybe next month. And there's a lot of times where maybe they don't have any money right now. There are some ways that if we get a conversation started, here's how we plan that out. Here's how you can do that and actually be in a house this time next month with no money down.
Right.
And in a cheaper, the least expensive way, maybe there's some other things out there. Again, you're listening to Carolina's Mortgage Radio. Do not let money stand in the way of owning your first home. Give us a call anytime during or after the show, 704-999-6646.